Hello there, Homeschool Nolan here to help you navigate learning in the digital age. Today I'd like to share with you some homeschooling tips for working parents. Homeschooling has certainly gained a lot of attention this past year in the midst of a pandemic. Many parents now recognize homeschooling as a great way to become more involved in their children's education. It's also become a popular alternative to both private schools and remote learning. But homeschooling is still not for everyone, especially for parents who work full-time and have limited time resources. So today, as a working parent myself, I'd like to offer some tips I've learned this past year that may help working parents who are thinking about homeschooling. But first, I'd like to define what I mean by working parent. A working parent, in my view, is someone who has a full-time job. They typically work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 p.m. Now, most of the homeschooling families I know have one working parent while the other parent manages most of the homeschooling. I actually don't know of many homeschooling families that have both parents working full-time. Needless to say, trying to homeschool when both parents work is very difficult. And I'm certainly not here today to try to sell you on the idea that it can be easily done. But many working families today remain frustrated over the educational options available to their kids. As many public schools remain closed, their choice seems to be limited to either expensive private schools or ineffective remote learning. Many parents would like to try homeschooling, but their full-time jobs just don't give them the time to do so. So what are parents to do? Well, if you're a working parent who would like to become more involved in your child's education, here are some tips based on my experience as a homeschooling parent this past year. First, start part-time. Understand that homeschooling is not an all or nothing proposition. When we think of school, we often think of it as being in a classroom Monday through Friday from morning to afternoon. It's only natural then to think of homeschooling as trying to recreate this classroom experience in your own home. But obviously, if you're working full-time, you won't be able to do this Monday through Friday from morning to afternoon. Instead, you will have to adopt a new mindset that learning is what matters, not recreating the school experience at home. And learning can happen anywhere at any time. So practically speaking, if you are working full-time, your homeschooling would simply have to take place in the evenings or on the weekends or whenever you're able to take or find time off work. If you work at home like I do, you may be able to find 1 or 2 hour time slots during the weekday when you can teach lessons and help your kids do their homework. Now obviously, the more time you spend on something, the better. 6 hours of homeschooling per day is probably going to be more productive than just 2. But if you could spend even just 1 hour per day helping your child learn, that's still better than nothing. So remember, homeschooling is not an all or nothing proposition. In fact, you can start homeschooling your child today part-time, even if your child is still enrolled in school. Now, some people start businesses on the side while they are still working. Why not consider homeschooling as your own startup business that you can launch on the side as well? Starting a homeschool, like starting a business, takes commitment and hard work. And it's not for everyone. But the investment you make in helping your child learn and prepare for an uncertain future could be far more rewarding than any other investment you make. So if you do decide to take the plunge into homeschooling, even if it's part-time. The second tip I have to offer is join a learning pod. In other words, learn from others. I used to picture homeschooling as a parent alone with their kid, sitting at a kitchen table, trying to teach every subject, while all the other kids in the neighborhood were at a public school learning together. But because of the pandemic, many more families have turned to homeschooling. This makes it easier now to find other families either in your neighborhood or in your own social network with whom you can meet with on a regular basis and learn together. When we were forced to homeschool last year due to the pandemic, we found a couple other families in our neighborhood whose kids were about the same age, and we formed a learning pod. We continue to meet several times per week, and each parent takes turns teaching different subjects from language arts, history, science, and math. And as a working parent myself, I've managed to find time during the week to teach the kids both history and science. We usually meet in person, but sometimes we meet over Zoom when one of us is traveling. Forming a learning pod with other families definitely takes the burden off of any one parent from having to teach everything. Now, I personally do have a job that allows me to work from home. And working from home does make it easier for me to find time during the day to teach lessons. But if you're a parent who works outside the home, you could still try forming a learning pod that simply meets on evenings or on weekends. And start out by simply helping your kids do better at their own current school. As a working parent, you will sometimes have no choice but to focus on the quality, not the quantity of time spent teaching your kids. And who knows? Perhaps after a few weeks of part-time homeschooling, you will start to gain confidence that with commitment and hard work, you too can become a successful homeschooling parent. And if you do continue your homeschooling journey, but you start to feel a bit overwhelmed by having to teach different subjects that you're not familiar with, my third tip is use learning centers. Remember, homeschooling parents don't just play the role of teacher. They also play the role of principal, mentor, and coach. And as a homeschooling parent, you can always consider hiring other teachers and tutors to teach certain subjects. And a great way to do that is to find learning centers in your area that specialize in different subjects. In my area, we have learning centers that teach English, math, computer coding, and art. Before the pandemic, we were sending our child to local learning centers and private tutors on the weekends to help brush up on and improve on skills that he was already learning in his regular school. But once the pandemic hit, many of these learning centers went online, and they continue to be a great way for children to learn at home while their busy parents work. And I predict that in a post-pandemic world, more learning centers will continue to pop up, teaching all sorts of different subjects, and they will continue to offer their courses online because of the convenience and accessibility it offers for more and more kids eager to learn. So in summary, homeschooling can be very rewarding as you invest to help your children learn and prepare for an uncertain future. But it also takes time and commitment. And if you're a working parent with limited time, but who also wants to make an even bigger difference in your child's education, then my advice would be, again, to 1, start part-time, 2, join a learning pod, and 3, use learning centers. Try it for a few weeks or a few months to see if it's right for you. Even if it doesn't work out, I'm sure you will at the very least gain some valuable experience and learn something about both yourself and your child. And if it does work out and you do succeed in homeschooling your child, I believe it will turn out to be one of the best investments of your time and resources that you will ever make. Please click subscribe below if you found this video useful. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.